Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Phoebe and today I'm here with my end of the year book tag yet again, wearing my Magnolia Park jumper. So I'm going to do a few kind of end of the year videos, that is the plan. Like top books of 2024, I think I'm going to do top 24 ranked in a separate video. I'm going to do like all the series I still haven't finished, despite making several finishing series videos this year. Just various end of the year videos, but I feel like a staple one that we need to do is the end of the year book tag. So this is just a variety of questions giving me the opportunity to yap about quite a lot of the books that I read this year. So the first question, we're starting on a negative note, but we'll get to the positives later. So the first one is most disappointing book, and for me that has to be Daydream by Hannah Grace. I'm not saying this is a bad book, I gave this 4 stars. You might be confused. I thought this was going to be a 6-star read, and even whilst reading it for like the first part, I thought it was going to be a 6-star read. It had the makings of a 6-star. This is everything that I should love in a book. But I was going through a really horrific time with my emetophobia when I read this, and I'm not going to go into it, but trigger warning in this book for anyone else who is emetophobic. That isn't the book's fault. I didn't dock points for that, but obviously it affected the reading experience, the fact that like it made me have a panic attack, and that's not a joke. I actually had a panic attack whilst reading this book. However, the reason that it wasn't a 5 or 6 star, despite my own like personal issues, because obviously that's not Hannah Grace's fault that I'm weak and I can't read about people being ill. That's not her fault. That's my problem. I prefer them as friends. I do. I think they are soulmates, but I think they are friend soulmate. It's hard to say I wasn't convinced by the romance, because I think these characters are both like very genuine people, but I just feel like they should have been best friends rather than a couple. I'm so sorry. But yeah, not saying it's a bad book at all. I just thought that I would be like completely obsessed with it, and I just wasn't. And every time I look at it, I just feel a sense of disappointment. But that's not a reflection of Hannah Grace or kind of the way she's written it. It's literally just personal preference that I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. The next one is a bit more positive. Let me find it. I've got so many stacks of books around me that I don't know where any of them are, because I had them all stacked in order of the questions and then dropped them all on the floor. So when I dropped this one on the floor, I also ripped the cover, so this video is going great so far. But question number 2 is an underdog book. So a book that I wasn't sure how I would feel, a book that I wasn't necessarily expecting to love and did. And for me that has got to be These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This has been sat on my shelves for so long, and I just never picked it up. I kept putting it off, thinking, oh, it's a YA fantasy. Some of my favourite books ever, i.e. The Cruel Prince, are YA fantasies, but sometimes YA fantasies just don't hit for me anymore. I think because I compare them to things like The Cruel Prince. However, this here, I gave this a 4.25 stars. I've also now read the second one in the series, loved that one as well. So basically this is about, I didn't explain Daydream, this is the 3rd book in a series, the Icebreaker series. I feel like everyone kind of knows about this one. This was very popular on BookTube and BookTok, but a few years ago, so maybe if you're newer to BookTube and BookTok you might not have heard of this one. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920s Shanghai, and there is romance, but it's not the main plot. So the 2 characters that the romance is between interact throughout the whole thing, but they're not only interacting for the purpose of the romance, like it's not just the main point of the book, but there is a gorgeous romance in here that you get crumbs of in this first book. But yeah, it's basically about the blood feud between these 2 families, how that is impacting the city as a whole. I just love this. I've talked about it in a few videos, so I'm not going to ramble on for too long, but I wasn't expecting too much from this, and I ended up absolutely loving it. The next question is, well, back to the negatives, an overhyped book. I'm so sorry. Again, I'm not saying I didn't like this. Again, I gave it 4 stars. But I went into this thinking it's going to be a 6-star read, and that's my own fault. Again, it's not the author's fault that this was overhyped, like she can't control that. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm still going to continue on with the series. I've already read the second one and the novella. I'm eagerly awaiting the 3rd book. If the 3rd book is like, wow, this could be a favourite series for me, but as it stands right now, I think this first book was a little bit overhyped. When everyone was kind of comparing it to the Hunger Games and things like that, it definitely gave me crumbs of those vibes, but not as much as I was expecting. It just wasn't as like special and original and hard-hitting as I expected it to be based on the way that everyone spoke about it. If you don't know, this is a YA fantasy, and it's kind of got like, it has got Hunger Games elements, but what I did like about this is that it's not just a copy of the Hunger Games. It definitely stands on its own. But I think if you like the Hunger Games and you like fantasy books, I'd definitely give this one a go. But just maybe don't go into it like I did, thinking this is going to be like the best thing since sliced bread, because it's very good. But I did think it was slightly overhyped a little bit. Number 4, a book that surprised you. So for this one, I have gone with Funny Story by Emily Henry. If you don't know, because I don't think I've mentioned it, I'm doing Bookmas over on TikTok, so I'm uploading videos there every day. Quite like chatty book videos. They tend to be between like 3 and 10 minutes long, so quite a lot of book chats going on over on TikTok. I was going to upload them here as shorts, but you can't, because I think shorts have to be under a minute and a half, and none of them are under a minute and a half. The point of me telling you that was, I did a TikTok as part of Bookmas about books that surprised me, both positively and negatively. So if you want to see more of books that surprised me, you can go over there and watch that. They're all labelled on the thumbnails on my TikTok, and the link is in the description. Anyway, for this video I decided to go with Funny Story because I read Happy Place and I didn't love it. I adore book lovers. Happy Place was fine. Beach Read was fine. People We Meet on Vacation was fine. So going into this I was a bit nervous. I never know with Emily Henry's books which way it's going to go. This was like a 5-6 star read for me. I identify so much with the main character, the way that she thinks she has to live to please others and can't have her own life, and has just absorbed the lives of everybody around her and not made her own lives with her own likes and dislikes, and I am Daphne and Daphne is me. So this very pleasantly surprised me, because with it being Emily Henry's most recent release that I wasn't obsessed with, I was worried that maybe her new books just wouldn't be for me, but this definitely was. So I am back on the Miss Emily Henry train now, and I loved this so much, and I am so glad, because her writing is incredible. I think it's just a case for me with Emily Henry books whether or not I click with the characters, because the writing's always great, the plots are always great. It's literally just whether or not I identify with the characters, and in this one I very much did, to a painful point. The next one, favourite book couples. I've got quite a few for this. So the first one is Daphne and Miles from Funny Story. I think the way that their relationship developed, they're both just very genuine people. I think their feelings came across very genuine, even though the circumstances they found themselves in. So basically, Daphne's partner and Miles' partner cheat on them with each other, which leaves Daphne and Miles. Daphne has nowhere to live, so she moves in with Miles because she's literally got nowhere else to go. She's moved to this town because of her ex. She knows like no one, she doesn't have her own life there, she just absorbed into his life. So she moves in with Miles with nowhere else to go. So even though they find themselves in a very weird situation, I was worried that their relationship would seem forced, but it didn't. It just really organically grew through their circumstances. They really got to know each other. And yeah, I just really, really love them. The next one is the couple from this book. I think it's pretty clear who they are, but I don't want to say it just in case. But the main couple from this book, I love them. There are actual reasons and really high stakes as to why they cannot be together. And it's also a second chance because they have been together secretly in the past. So just seeing the way that they work around that, and again, it just shows that their feelings are so genuine because they have so many reasons to just not be together, and yet they work through all those reasons anyway. Next we've got, when I can get the book out, next we've got Ryke and Daisy from the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. This is my favourite couple, and I did not expect that at all. I went in thinking that the age gap would really freak me out, but they ended up being my favourite. I just love them. Again, they are so just open and raw and honest with each other. With them, you really see their relationship grow. Like with Rose and Connor, you kind of do. Lily and Lo, obviously, they've already got so much background off page that we get like inklings of it, but I feel like with Ryke and Daisy, you literally see their romance develop. From like, not from, they don't get together when they meet, but you know what I mean, you see them meet and you see everything that comes after that, and I really enjoyed that kind of insight and just seeing the whole like breadth of how their relationship grew. Then we've got Brie and Jacob from Yours Truly. I don't have a physical copy, but it's by Abby Jimenez. Their communication is just top notch. They communicate with each other. They're open with each other. They have a really good friendship before it turns into a relationship. They communicate by letters, which always gets me, like letters, emails, text messages. Love that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really their communication for me, and I just love them together so much. The next one, again, I don't have a physical copy of yet. Play Along by Liz Tomford, Kennedy and Isaiah. Boy Obsessed, need I say any more on that? I love the boy obsessed trope. And the last one for favourite couples is Iris and Roman from Divine Rivals. I think this is one of the most pure romances ever. And when I say pure, I just mean like beautiful and innocent and just so real and so organic. They also, as suggested by the title, they are rivals. So it's not like an automatic connection. Well, they kind of do have an automatic connection, but it's not like an automatic romance. Again, you see it grow from the point of them being rivals with everything that they go through, and then how they get to the point of their beautiful love story. So yeah, they are, I'm sure there are some that I'm missing, but off the top of my head and looking through my Goodreads, they are the ones that really stick in my mind as my favourite couples that I've read this year. Next one is favourite main characters. I am going to repeat myself again, so I'm not going to talk about these books, I'm just going to show you them. Yeah, my favourite two characters are Juliet and Daphne. The next question, new favourite author. So I've actually read so many new authors this year that I had obviously never read from before that have really cemented themselves as favourites. So the first one is, I'm not going to hold the books, oh no, I really should hold the books up, shouldn't I? Bear with me guys, I just need to move all the books around again. The first one is Rebecca Ross. I really want to go back and read some of her other books. I've only read the Divine Rivals duology from her so far. I will read anything this woman releases. The way that she writes, the way that she crafts a story, just obsessed. So definitely cemented herself as a new favourite for me. Chloe Walsh, again, I will read anything that she puts out. I'm hoping to get to Taming 7 either this month or next month. I've been putting it off because I don't want to be left with no books in the Boys of Tommen series left to read. The next one is, I'm just going to hold up the same books, Krista and Becca Ritchie. I promise there are some other books that I'm going to talk about in this video. It's not just going to be the same ones over and over again. Just so happens that these first few questions, there's a lot of crossover. Krista and Becca Ritchie. I have only read Addicted Calloway. I know they have a new book out now. But I haven't read it yet, Dishonestly Yours. So we'll see how I feel after I read that one. But I just, again, I love the way they write. Their books are so easily digestible. The characters feel so real, so believable, like this could actually be happening somewhere out there in the world, and that's what I really love in a book. And then the last two, we've got K.A. Walford. So the first book I read from her this year, and the only book I've read so far, is The Summer of Broken Rules. I do own What Happens After Midnight, I just haven't gotten to that one quite yet. But again, I just love the way that she writes. I love that in this book there was so many different strands. There was the romance, there was the grief, there was the big game of assassin, there was the family relationships. There was just so many different elements, and all of them worked really well together. And despite the fact that some of those elements were very sad and hard hitting, the book still had like a really good, like just a good vibe. Like it didn't feel too melancholy and too sad. Those elements worked really well with the lighter elements of the book. And I think that takes quite the skill in a book to include grief and not have the book feel sad, even though it obviously is so sad. So yeah, love that. And of course, Miss Chloe Gone. Just the pacing, the way that she writes her characters, the way that she used the Romeo and Juliet kind of foundation but made it her own. Loved it. And I am planning to read, I've already read another book from her, but I'm planning to carry on and read like the Foul Lady Fortune spin-off series as well. The next one, authors that did not work for me this year. Okay, here we go. The first one was a big shock because this author has written one of my favourite books that I have ever read. One of my 6-star reads is by this author. However, everything else I have read from them I have not liked, apart from that one book. And this year was kind of the final straw. I've been reading her books for a few years now, and this year I read One Last Stop, which is by Casey McQuiston. It makes me so sad because Red, White and Royal Blue is like a 10-star read. I adore that book with every fibre of my being. I think it's incredible. I didn't like this. I didn't like the Shara Wheeler book. It's just making me think maybe Red, White and Royal Blue was a one-hit wonder for me. And again, I'm not saying this is bad. I don't think it's bad. The premise is so interesting. It's basically about a girl who is like stuck in time on a train. But it just didn't work for me. The execution just did not work. Which makes me so sad because when I read Red, White and Royal Blue, I was like, oh my god, this is like a new favourite author. and then everything else I read from her I just didn't like. So I think maybe I'm accepting that Casey McQuiston's not for me, and it's just Red, White and Royal Blue that is for me rather than her as an author, which does make me sad. Also, another author that did not work for me. I read this particular book a couple of years ago, but I don't have a physical copy of the other one, so I just thought I'd hold this up. I read Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune this year, which is like interconnected with this one, I believe. I can't even remember. I didn't like this one either, by the way. Then I read that one and still didn't like it. I just don't like the tropes in Carly Fortune's book. I don't like her characters, and for me it's so difficult to read a book if I don't like the characters. It's slightly different in things like thrillers or fantasy books, or just in general in any genre, I suppose, when you're not supposed to like them and then they get redeemed. That's different. But I don't think you're supposed to hate the characters to the degree that I hate them in Carly Fortune's books. So yeah, it just doesn't work for me. I just don't want to read books where I don't like the characters. Such an important part of reading for me is connecting with characters, and obviously I can't do that if I hate them. So yeah. And the last author did not work for me to such a degree that I've already gotten rid of the physical copy, and it's Jenny Han. I read The Summer I Turned Pretty last year or the year before. I liked the first book, really didn't like the other two. Then this year, last month or the month before, it wasn't that long ago, I read To All the Boys I Loved Before, and I gave it 1.5. So again, I'm thinking maybe Jenny Han's just not for me. Just, again, her characters just wind me up. I just don't like them at all. The next one, what is the happiest book you read this year? I'm going to have to grab it from my shelves because I gave up grabbing them from the shelves after I dropped the first lot on the floor. So we'll just start grabbing as we go from now. I think the happiest book is Practice Makes Perfect, because the girl in here is just so sunshine that it just makes the whole book feel so happy, even though she's actually quite annoyed at like everyone around her for treating her like a child, which they definitely do. She's just such a ray of sunshine, even when she gets like a backbone towards the end of the book and she's like, this isn't a spoiler by the way, and she's like, stop treating me like a child, I'm a grown woman. She's still like, she doesn't let her femininity go just to prove that she's a grown woman. Does that make sense? Like, she's proof that you can be a strong grown woman with your own opinions and your own life, but still be sunshine and still be happy and still want to help everyone around you. You don't have to let go of that to be seen as like a fully grown woman. Does that make sense? So I really loved this. It was just such fun, good vibes. And I would definitely recommend Sarah Adams' book, because if you just want something that's light and a bit silly, I would recommend Sarah Adams. I didn't love The Cheat Sheet, but these two books, When in Rome, which is the first one, and then Practice Makes Perfect. You can just read this on its own because it's interconnected standalones, but I'd recommend When in Rome as well. It has that same just kind of silly, fun vibe. Small town romances that are just so easy to get into. The next two are the saddest books that I read. The first one is Binding 13, which is now at the bottom of the pile, so I'm so sorry guys, I'm really not going to dig that back out. Read the trigger warnings if you want to read that book, because it is very triggering, but so incredible. So sad, so happy at times, just a complete mixture of emotions. It's like a roller coaster reading that book and the series in general. So I would 100% recommend the Boys of Tommen series, but please do look at trigger warnings. And the other one, if I can get it from here, Into the Dark by Magnolia Parks. I read this at the right time for me. I'm not going to say what the theme is in here because it will ruin the series, like it could be a very big spoiler, but I needed this at the time that I read it, and I never thought I'd say that about Magnolia Parks book because I loved the ones that came before this, but they were never that emotional for me until I read this one, and I just bawled like a baby, but in like a really cathartic way. Like, this is a sad book, but in a satisfying way, where it's like sad but hopeful at the same time. Like, you are seeing a particular character in here try and heal from something that you can never truly heal from, but there's that sense of like hope and an underlying sense of happiness underneath the sadness. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully if you've read it, you know what I mean. But I just, yeah, adored this book with every part of me, and as I said, I just really needed it, and I think I will always just remember this book and just feel a connection to the character that went through the thing in this book. The next one, most frustrating book. This was actually the first book I read this year, and it's The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. Of course I don't own a physical copy because I hated it. It's the second book in, I don't even know what the series is called. Serpent and the Wings of Night is the first book. This is the second one. We just went round in circles. The only thing that the main male character said throughout this book is, there she is. Every time he saw the main female character, he was just like, oh, there she is. Is she a lost chicken, sir? Like, what? Why are you always saying there? We know she's there. I can read it on the page. You don't need to tell me that she's here. And just the actions, the decisions made, everything about this book just wound me up. I will not be continuing with the series, suffice to say. I'm not saying don't read it though, because so many people love the series. Give it a go and see if it's for you. But the characters wound me up, and I'll say it again. If I don't like the characters, I'm probably not going to like the book, but it might just be personal preference. It must be personal preference because everyone else loves it. So I would still recommend reading it. You might love it. I, however, really did not. The next one, the best book to film TV adaptation. I can't reach. This will always be Heartstopper for me. Series 3 came out, or season 3 came out on Netflix this year. I'm holding up volume 1 just because it's the only one I could reach. But yeah, season 3 came out on Netflix this year. And as with season 1 and season 2, just the most incredible, accurate depiction I've ever seen. Like, the little cartoon drawings that they include come straight from the graphic novels. The appearance of the characters, like, look at, this is the original cover. So before the TV show was ever even in consideration, before it existed, before there was a cast, you can't tell me that that is not Kit Connor and Joe Locke. They are Nick and Charlie. Obviously they're not. They're real people with their own lives. Leave them alone. But in terms of the casting for the TV show, I think it was perfect. Every character was exactly how I imagined that they would be. The way that they act is the way that the characters act in the graphic novels. I just think it is the best adaptation that I have seen. There is nothing that I have seen in the adaptation where I'm like, why did they include that, or why didn't they include that? I think they did an incredible job, and I will always rewatch it constantly. Next question is favourite covers of the year. Again, as part of Bookmas, I did a video over on TikTok, the 11 prettiest books that I own, but they weren't all the ones that I read this year. Some of them I read in different years. It was just generally out of all the books I own. So I've just picked a couple to show you this time. Actually, I can't show you all of them. I'll have to do an overlay because I don't yet own a physical copy of the first one. I definitely want to. And it's the Emily Wilde series. I'll probably end up getting the physical copies when the third one is released in 2025. I'll probably just buy them all together. I have already read the first two. I don't know why I haven't got physical copies yet. I've just not seen them in Waterstone, so I've not ended up picking them up. But I will get them at some point because they are, as you can see, stunning. I just think they are so beautiful, so whimsical. Perfectly match the vibe of the books as well. And then the other one is Divine Rivals. Just, I will never get over how beautiful these covers are. Again, I've talked about that book about 16 times in this video, so I'm going to stop, but stunning. The next one, a book you haven't stopped thinking about, it's going to have to be the Boys of Tommen series. I think about this every day. I'm holding up this one just because it's the one I've got, but you can see here I've got Saving 6 and Redeeming 6. I think particularly those two actually I think about more. Joey and Aoife. I love Johnny and Shannon, don't get me wrong. All the books in that series so far are a 5-star for me. But I think I do think about Joey and Aoife actually more often than I think about Johnny and Shannon. Maybe it's just because I read them more recently, but I kind of read them all quite back to back. I just really connect to Joey and Aoife a tiny bit more, maybe because they're close to my age, I don't really know. But yeah, Boys of Tommen series in general, and Magnolia Park's Into the Dark, obviously, I think about literally every day. The next one is an unpopular book that you loved. This has god-awful ratings on Goodreads. It's like a 3-point-something star, which for Goodreads is very low. Obviously, like, for us readers, a 3-star rating isn't bad, but if something has like a 3.5 on Goodreads, that's really quite low. I think this might have like a 3.6 or 3.4, somewhere around there. I loved this book. It's a YA fantasy about Saoirse, who comes from nothing. She's an orphan. She has no, like, obviously she has no family, she has no noble ties, and in the world that she lives in, it's really important to come from a noble family or just, you know, a well-known, well-off family. It's very hard to make something of yourself if you don't come from that, and obviously she has no family at all, so she's so determined to make something of herself, and this book is her journey trying to do that, and I just loved it. I didn't find her annoying. I thought she was written at the age that she was supposed to be. She wasn't written younger or older than she was meant to be. The side characters were great, the setting was great, the world building was good. I think it was enough without being info dumpy. So I really, really loved this, even though not many people seem to, but I thought it was great. The next one, a book you thought you'd love but didn't, Daydream, but we're going to move past that because I've already spoken about it. And the other one, Kiss the Sky. So I've spoken about Hot House Flower like 8 times. I said that Krista and Rebecca Ritchie are new favourite authors of mine, and that is true. Reading about Rose and Connor in the previous books, I loved them. However, being in the head of Connor Cobalt was a whole different experience to reading about him from other people's point of view. Rose was fine, Rose's point of view were fine, but I found being in Connor's head was really annoying. I'm not saying he is annoying, I don't think he is, but being in his head as someone that is nowhere near his level of intelligence was just irritating to me. So I think I ended up giving this like a 2.5 or a 3. So I didn't love it. I thought this could be like a 5. I thought they were going to be my favourite couple out of the series. Suffice to say they're not, we've already discussed who is. But yeah, I really thought I would like that book a lot more than I actually ended up doing. The next one, book with the most unique concept. Okay, the first one I'm not sure is that unique, but it's unique to me, and it's Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I know now there are quite a few, like I know Phantasma is said to be quite similar. I haven't read that one yet, but I do plan to. Basically, Caraval, if you don't know, it's this travelling game that travels around. It only goes to each place once, so it might not come like anywhere near you in your lifetime. You might never have the chance to go. And even if it does come near you, I think it is quite hard to get in, to get like an invitation or a ticket to go. So basically, these two sisters go to the island to partake in Caraval, and it's just like completely mind-bending. Like, the people there don't know what's real and what's not. They don't know what's going to have real consequences, what's going to last beyond the game, what's just a part of the game, what's a trick of the mind, is magic involved. Like, nobody knows what is going on. But I didn't find it frustrating to read. I was worried that I would, but I didn't. It was just fascinating. I just loved it. And I'm not saying that's the most unique thing in the world. Obviously there's a lot of fantasy books with like games and stuff, but just that element of like, usually you know that there is magic in a fantasy book, and obviously we as the reader do, but the characters in the book don't. They don't know what's real. They don't know, like, they don't even believe like in magic. Like, they don't think magic's real. So to them, everything happening as part of this game is actual real life. Fascinating. And also, I was just going to quickly mention funny story. Like, I kind of mentioned before that the circumstances behind the relationship are definitely very unique, and I'm sure it has been done in other romances, but I've never read it in another romance before where they are like forced to live with each other because their partners cheated on them with each other. Next one, books that you would reread. I'm going to quickly skim through the ones I've already spoken about. Into the Dark, Boys of Tommen and Funny Story. But I also chose for this one, if I can grab it, I'm literally just wrecking my bookshelf now, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This was so fun. This is like a 6-star read for me. I loved this. It was fun and serious at the same time. Great characters, great romance, great world, really good world building, easy to understand. But just Ali Hazelwood's humour always gets me in all of her books, but I think it worked particularly well in this. Like, the juxtaposition between these literal like deadly vampires and werewolves, and then Ali's just chucking in jokes. I loved this book, and I definitely would love to reread it. Hopefully maybe in 2025, just to relive that humour. We're nearly at the end. The next one, a book you wish you got to this year. It's at the bottom of the pile, but I will pull it out because I haven't spoke about this one yet. Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I wish I had gotten to this series, but I was considering for a while just skipping Caraval and going to this. I know that once you've done that, it's harder to go back because it spoils the end of the Caraval trilogy, but my brain just would not let me. So I decided a couple of months ago now I'm going to read Caraval first, then get to this. So I've read Caraval. I still need to read the next two. Is it Legendary and Finale? I'm hoping to get to those like January, February time so that I can get to this quite early in 2025. Because I've been anticipating this for a really long time, and I know people love this more than Caraval, and I already love Caraval, so if this is even better than that, I am very much anticipating reading this trilogy. I don't know what it's about, nor am I going to read the back, because I don't want to accidentally... I don't think there'll be spoilers for Caraval necessarily on the back of the books, but I don't want to risk it, because as I said, I've only read the first book in the Caraval trilogy. The last two questions aren't about specific books, they're more just like general reflections of the year. So the first of the final two questions is Goodreads goal reflection. So I think my original goal was 50 books. And then when I got to 50, I upped it, I think, to 75. When I hit 75, I upped it to 100, and then just left it at 100. I'm currently on 115 books read, which I'm pretty happy with that. I actually weirdly am kind of aiming to read less next year, which I'll get onto in a moment. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with 115. I think I've been more selective this year. Still not where I want to be in terms of really reading books that I'm interested in, and not just because... Anyway, I'll go on to that in a minute. I'm happy with the amount of books I've read this year. I think 115 is fine. Obviously, I'm way beyond my original goal, but I always tend to do that on Goodreads. I will set a lower goal because I never want to look at it and be behind, because I never want reading to be stressful. So I always set a lower goal so that if I have a slower few months, like at the beginning of the year, it never matters anyway, but like it especially doesn't matter because my Goodreads isn't like, you're 20 books behind. I don't want to know. I don't want to be behind. So that's the way I tend to do it on Goodreads, is I'll set a lower goal, and then when I hit it, then I'll move it up. So yeah, I'd be happy no matter how many books I read. Like, I really don't... For me, it's more about quality, and that brings me on to the next question, is what will you prioritise in 2025? I'm going to do a whole like video of the specific books I'm going to prioritise, like 25 for 25. But in terms of just generally my priorities in terms of reading, is I want to continue the road I've gone down this year of prioritising quality of quantity. I really want to pick up books that I am truly interested in, that I have heard people talk about, and it's been like, oh, I think I'd be interested in that. I'm still going to pick up viral books just because I don't want FOMO. I'm not saying I'm not going to read like recommendations, of course I am. Like, I love BookTok, I love BookTube. I'm still going to be reading the popular books, but it's more like I have a very big physical TBR that I feel obligated to read because I own physical copies, and I just want to change that. I'm going to do a big on-haul before the end of the year, because I don't want to feel like I have to read a book just because I bought a physical copy of it 5 years ago. Just donate it and let somebody else read it. I really want to focus on books that I look at them and I'm like, I want to read that. Not, oh god, I have to read that. If I look at a book and think, oh, I need to read that this month, I'm not reading it. I don't want to feel obligated to read. Like, this is supposed to be fun. And part of that is I want to buy books when I actually want to read them. So I am going to do a haul at the end of the year. I'm going to do an order of books that I know I'm interested in, that I really want to read soon. Like a couple of follow-ups to series that I've started that I know I want to continue. But then after that, I want to read a book, bring it home and read it that day. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to buy books and just have them sat for months and years on my physical TBR because I bought them on a whim. I still want to go into Waterstones or wherever the works and look at a book and think, oh, that looks interesting, and take it home. But then I actually want to read it in a timely manner and not just buy books and think that's interesting, but then let it sit on the TBR cart. I really want to get better at reading books when I've bought them. And also with series, I want to get better at reading the first book thinking that's good, I like that. Okay, so let's read the second one now, Phoebes. Like, let's not wait 6 years to carry on with a series and just be sat in the middle of like 60 series. So yeah, they're my priorities basically. Focus on quality rather than quantity. Don't feel obligated to ever read a book. If I look at a book and think, oh god, I don't want to read that, then I'm simply not going to. Whether I own a physical copy or not, I'll donate it and someone else will love and enjoy it, or they'll read it and they'll redonate it, and eventually it will find the hands of someone that loves it. And then also just not buying books for the sake of buying books, buying ones that I'm actually interested in and that I actually want to read within like the next month or two. So yeah, that is my end of the year book tag. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do give it a thumbs up down below if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!